Hello and welcome to another episode of Morris LC Rescue. Today, well, it's a tale of two trucks, and we're going to hear a bit from the owner of this truck behind me, John, who this truck was bought by his father in 1952 and pretty much used continuously right up through into the late 70s, early 80s. And it is a pretty amazing story, and considering it's an LC3U, not an LC3, so it is the slightly lighter version, if you're talking suspensions, of this little commercial vehicle. But yeah, pretty amazing story, and man, this truck has done some work. So strap yourselves in and let's check it out. Well, I did say in the intro that it's a tale of two trucks, this story, and it came about due to the fact that John's family wanted him to get back behind the wheel of his beloved Morris commercial for his 87th birthday. Now, his truck, unfortunately, wasn't in the condition that they could get it running in the time frame that they had. So John's grandson Dan was actually able to locate an LC3 that was repairable, and then they went hell for leather to get this truck ready in time for John's birthday. That part of the story will come a bit later, but for now we'll let John tell his side of the story. Meet John and Colleen, an amazing couple who I was lucky enough to spend some time with and hear and share in some of these stories. John and Colleen are the absolute embodiment of the Tasmanian pioneering spirit, having worked on the land and worked hard all their lives. John's expertise in areas of all things bushcraft and woodworking is just amazing. He's still building huts and shacks the old way with shingles and palings, recycling materials wherever he can. He's responsible for rebuilding historic shacks around Tasmania and has walked the overland track 5 times. Farmers, graziers, land clearers, timbermen, there's nothing these guys haven't done. So let's hear a little bit of his story and how he came to be the proud owner of a Morris LC3U.
Back in 1952, Dad was a berry fruit grower, and he had an extra good year that year, and he decided to buy a vehicle to take much more bigger load, because he had an old Ford Ute that only carried a few hundredweight, and he bought this Morris commercial, which it took nearly a tonne at a time. So he bought that and a drag saw that cut big logs, where we used to use the old crosscut before, so the drag saw done all the work for us to get the firewood. We didn't live on the farm. The farm was way back up in the hill, but we lived down on the lower part of the property, and we travelled backwards and forwards to work. Dad and I did when I left school. I was only 16 or about 16 then, and before that Dad used to have a motorbike, and when I left school he didn't use a motorbike. The road was too rough, so we travelled back and forth every day in the Morris. Yes, that was about late 1958, 59, but I didn't really go with Dad. I more or less stayed home and looked after the place while Dad and Mum and my younger brothers and sisters, when they were small, they used to travel up to up to the lakes and around Queenstown and those sort of places every year. So I more or less stayed home and looked after the property and done a bit of work while he went away for about two or 3 weeks. When we had the fruit every year, I used to cut most of it out, down off the hill, and Dad used to back the ute right up against the bank, and I used to walk straight down and straight onto the ute and put all the fruit on the back, you see. And I done most of the carting now. I've got a yoke over there on the wall. All the fruit was grown on the side of the hill. You couldn't get a tractor or a horse or anything up on those sides of the hill to to carry the fruit down. We used to grow about 30 odd tonnes.
Did you actually learn to drive and get your licence in this truck?
Yes.
Did you, John?
Yes, when I was at 17, you had to be 18 then. Dad taught me on the way to work. So like I said, we lived down on the lower part of the land, and we had to drive all the way to work. And when we got up on the top of the hill after climbing, I used to drive it for about a kilometre to the property then. And anyway, when I was 18, Dad took me to the police to get me licence, and went into the police office, and Dad said, "I brought me boy here to get his driver's licence." The only question he asked was, "Can he drive?" And Dad said, "If he couldn't drive, I wouldn't have brought him here." That's the only question. He wrote it out and gave it to me. Just like that. But every day I used to get a ton of firewood by 12 o'clock, split and on the truck. But I thought, it was about 12 o'clock, I thought I'll have my dinner before I tie it on. And I just happened to hear this noise down the valley behind me, way down the valley, and I couldn't figure out what it was. So I had to run out into an open about 100 yards, and there was a big fire coming up towards me. I rushed back and grabbed my chainsaw. I left everything else that was there, only grabbed my chainsaw, got in, and by the time I got in and started off, the fire was right behind me. I usually come out of the bush in low gear with a ton of firewood on the back. I had to come out in second and third because the fire was starting to catch up right up at me, and I was just bouncing along on the old mill road, which is only wheel ruts there. And by the time I got out into the open, out into a main road, all the wood fell off, all bounced off, because I didn't have it tied on, it just bounced off. And then, anyway, I got out safe. The fire came out, followed me all the way because I can see it in the rear vision mirror. And I had to speed up because if I'd didn't, it would have passed me. So I just sped up, put it in the third gear, finished up putting it in third gear, and it just bounced out.
Probably the fastest the truck had been on a dirt road in a long, long time, John.
With a load on. Yeah, it was a good load. It probably didn't quite weigh a tonne, but by measurement, it was a tonne. So I used to drive it to the factory with the fruit on it every now and again. Dad used to like to go down and take the fruit, but I used to load all the fruit in the ute for Dad to take down to the factory, put it in the preserves and jam, make it into jam.
A lot of work for a little light truck.
Yeah, oh my word. But when they had the old Ford, I think it's a 1936 Ford, and you had to make 2 or 3 loads a day, because it only take half a ton. This old Morris took a ton. Oh, it was going rusty a bit, where it was a bit, and yes, it just sort of wore out and rusted a bit, been out in the weather all the time, the board's wet all the time, but it just fell off eventually.
And you dragged it down the road behind you.
Yeah, I just pulled it off and threw it in the bush, in a blackberry bush. That's where it stayed. They're not meant to be played with. They're meant to be worked. Yeah, no trying to drive flat out when it can't go past 80. You know, they're meant to be worked.
They are, at the end of the day, John, they're a commercial vehicle, aren't they?
Exactly.
What was it like, seeing Dan actually drive the vehicle?
I just couldn't believe it. Honestly, I just could not believe it. I was shocked in a way. I thought to myself, what the devil did Patrick do that for? You know? I couldn't understand it. Yes, I know, it brought some tears in my eyes when I seen the Morris. I knew exactly what to do when I jumped in it.
Like I said to you, John, I saw a 20-year-old man there jump in and just knew what he was doing. Yeah,
I used to start a lot in second gear when I on the farm, because the low gear was so slow. I just put it in second and take off. And that's what happened down there. And Patrick thought I was going to crash it somewhere, I think. But there was a big space. I had a big circle to go around and come back.
You knew exactly what you were doing, John. Exactly.
Always knew about the Morris, and it was always in his shed up in New Norfolk, in the back of his shed there. And as a kid, we always knew about it, but we weren't allowed to touch it or play with it or go in the shed at all. So we grew up knowing that it was, it was this nice ute that we weren't allowed to touch. Anyway, when it come up here in Launceston, she sat here for a while, and then, I got to start talking with my old man, Patrick, and we got talking about restoring it, and then we looked at it, and it was, a big project. Anyway, I started doing a bit of research, and I found one down at Geeston, and that's where I found the Morris on that day, down at Geeston, and I didn't know anything about Morrises at that time, ever. And I didn't know what a find I actually, stumbled upon.
Bit of history.
Yeah, and now, since then, I love Morrises. I've got the bug now. I've been trying to find one for myself, but I just can't find one now, so, yeah.
Well, they are out there, but you got to turn over a few stones to find
them, don't you? Yeah.
That one that you found,
yeah.
Honestly, that is probably one of the best, in the best condition
to find.
I've seen one in Tasmania yet that hasn't been completely restored. So for an unrestored vehicle, the condition of that vehicle is amazing. And how did it feel for you jumping in that truck and driving it in for Grandad?
Oh, it was an honour. It was an honour to be able to, come in and, in front of the whole family and be the one to drive it in for him was, a real honour. I was real happy that I got to. And I only drove it, as you know, 10 minutes before, so I wasn't even seeing his reaction. I was just trying not to stall it in front of everyone. That's all I was thinking about.
I said to John today that I saw an 87-year-old that suddenly was 20 again. Yeah. The way that he jumped into that cab and just took off.
He took off across the lawn, and I was yelling out that he had a few beers and we better watch out because he might run us over.
It was amazing to watch, Dan, and what a magic thing for the family to do for him.
Yeah, it was an awesome day, and to get all our family there, an extended family, that's never really happened before. To get everyone there, and my little girl was there, so there was 3 generations or 4 generations. 4
generations,
yeah. So 4 generations was there.
I think that's what's really magical about, and I mean I realise this is Grandad's truck right here, so the other one was a bit of a substitute, but for him it was just like being back in this truck again.
Daniel rang me up and he said, "Dad, there's a Morris commercial in the paper." And I said, "Oh, that's good." I said, "How much they want for it?" He said, "They want 14,000. I said, "God, that's cheap." And anyway, I was going to go down there and have a look at it, but one thing led to another and I didn't do it. Anyway, 4 or 5 months later, Daniel rang me again. He said, "I'm going to Hobart." He said, "Do you want me to duck down and look at the Morris? It's still for sale." And I went down there and had a quick look at it, and I loved it. It was perfect. We brought the Morris back, and we had to do a few things. Had to put a tray on it, and luck happened to employ a mechanic, and we just did a few odds and ends with the machine, and we got it going, and it was a surprise for my father's 87th birthday. Something wrong with the water or the oil or something, and I walked into the shed there, and there's the Morris pulled to bits. I could not believe it. This was Wednesday. Yes, the parts are coming. Anyway, I don't know how they did it, but they got the Morris going by the Friday, ready for Dad's birthday on the Saturday. But I remember growing up as a child down at Maydena when Dad used to take us out in the Morris and we used to feed hay off the back of it. So one of us children would hop in the Morris and steer it. Dad had put it in probably first or second, I don't know. And we'd just be driving around the paddock, and Dad would be throwing off hay as we was just driving through the paddocks. So I grew up with it for a long time. I always remember sitting in the middle of the seat as kids, all of us lined up. There would have been 4 of us and Dad, so there was 5 of us sitting along the front seat, and that's what we did.
It's a pretty awesome thing that you did, Pat. I mean, it's to be able to do that for your dad speaks volumes of yourself, mate, and of the family.
Oh well, it didn't worry me, and it was good. It was good. So the Morris will be. Then hopefully we were able to do up Dad's original Morris. That's the main thing. This Morris, I do like it, but it's the original Morris that we had as children. That's what I want to see done up. When Dad took off, we was off. I was worrying about my insurance, I was scared to death he was going to run over everyone. I couldn't believe it. He took off.
Just hit the button and see what happens.
Yeah. Sounds good to me. First time, every time, mate. Brad Dunvinny's Truck Supplies.
And we've got idling at about 620.
Yep.
Which I think is just nice.
Absolutely, mate. No, she sounds good. You guys have done a magic job. What's the verdict, Dan?
Love it. Privilege.
Are you a convert now?
Confident enough to pull up in front of my whole family, I think. If I stole it, they won't let me forget it.
So this is not the Morris. This is just one like Dad's Morris. Dad's Morris, original Morris, which was brought by his father, is still down in the shed. So I want to acknowledge Phil. Phil got the Morris going.
Cheers to Dad. Happy birthday and hip hip. Hooray! Hip hip. Hooray! Hip hip. Hooray! And we'll be back here in 3 years. It'll be a repeat of this.
And
the Dad's
hopefully,
90th and the original Morris.
Well, that's pretty much a wrap for this episode, but not without saying a huge thank you to John and Colleen, Pat and Dan and their entire extended family for making me feel so welcome and allowing me to participate in what was truly a wonderful birthday party. A very timely reminder talking to John of just how valuable our senior citizens are in our community and the amount of knowledge that they have locked away there. All we have to do is ask. John was so giving of his time and just an incredible individual with so many fantastic life experiences. Anyway, from me to you, safe travels, happy restorations, and bye for now.